Charlotte York seems easy to label. She's the one who loves traditions, dreams of marriage, and still believes in fairy tales. She's polished, proper, and perfectly put together. She's a textbook example of someone chasing the classic happily ever after. But there are more to her than pearls, floral prints, and good manners. Why does she cling so fiercely to her ideals? Is she simply naive, or is she kind of a quiet power in her relentless hopefulness? On the surface, Charlotte may appear predictable, but once you look closer, you'll find a woman full of contradictions. She's soft-spoken yet incredibly strong-willed. She's romantic to the core, but unafraid to be stubborn when it matters. She's idealistic, yes, but also deeply sexual and emotionally bold in ways that catch you off guard. The tension between who she appears to be and who she is makes her truly fascinating. Today we're taking a closer look to Charlotte York, an apparently simple woman who in many ways represents the heart of the show. Through her, we see the struggle between who we're told we should be and who we really are.
What do you want?
I'm worth $1 million.
At first glance, Charlotte may appear to be the stereotypical aspiring housewife, waiting to be chosen by the right man so she can start a family. But she is far more selective than people assume, because she knows full well that she is the one doing the choosing, not the man. While she may have some regressive ideals, one thing remains clear. Charlotte firmly believes that she has the final say in her dating life. Despite her outwardly conservative and naive appearance, Charlotte displays a surprising awareness of how the world works. Her unwavering belief in love gives her a rare kind of insight, one that often eludes the more cynical. Still, her romantic and whimsical nature sets her up for both humorous and sobering moments when her fantasies fall short of reality. Charlotte is disciplined with herself and her expectations. She follows a set of self-imposed rules that she believes in deeply. Over time, though, these rules begin to soften, not because of a change in belief, but out of necessity and a hopeful openness to new experiences.
But if you're serious about a guy, then you have to keep him in a holding pattern for at least 5 dates.
Oh, you've gone up.
Yes, because the number of dates that you wait to have sex with a man is directly proportional to your age.
For Charlotte, these rules are a source of comfort and control. They allow her to believe that love is still possible as long as she stays within their boundaries. She's unmistakably feminine, sometimes a little too much, and sometimes it's quite endearing from her. And these qualities often appear when least expected, adding a charming layer of naivete and humor to her character. She clings tightly to her dreams and expectations, and when reality doesn't live up to them, she mourns not just the failed relationship, but the fantasy that never materialized. Yet, she never stops remaining and reshaping her dream life as she evolves. Despite her traditional approach, Charlotte is not so different from her friends. There's a reason she surrounds herself with Miranda the skeptic, Samantha the sensualist, and Carrie the creative soul. This contrast is especially clear in the episode where she reconnects with her college friends. The difference between them is stark, and under so much constraint, Charlotte has no other choice but let her inner Samantha out. One of the many contradictions in Charlotte's character is her relationship with intimacy, both with her own intimacy and with men, especially in the earlier seasons. A clear example is when she buys her first vibrator and quickly becomes obsessed with it, revealing a side of herself she hadn't fully acknowledged. This same theme reappears in her marriage to Trey, where problems in the bedroom force her to confront difficult truths. Another moment, seemingly minor but quite telling, is her discomfort in looking at her own lady bits in a mirror. These moments reflect Charlotte's complicated relationship with sexuality. Not with the act itself, but with society's expectations of what a quote-unquote good girl should and shouldn't do. That internalized pressure leads her to create strict personal rules, which she eventually bends in the name of exploring love and dating in New York City. As mentioned earlier, Charlotte is deeply aware of the system's rules and tries her best to play within them to get what she wants. A happy ending, a loving husband, children, and the life of a content wife and mother. But her commitment to playing by the rules doesn't protect her from disappointment. Since her teenage years, she's been dating with the expectation of finding her happily ever after, only to discover time and again that the very rules she clung to have failed her, even when she thought she had finally succeeded.
I've been dating since I was 15. I'm exhausted. Where is he?
Who, the White Knight?
A recurring pattern in Charlotte's life is projecting her dreams onto the men she dates, idealizing them too quickly and becoming disillusioned when reality doesn't meet her expectations. These moments, although painful, push her towards growth. Charlotte's relationship with Trey became one of the biggest tests of her character and her views on love and relationships. What she initially believed to be the fulfillment of her deepest wish turned out to be a painful but transformative experience, one that forced her to expand her understanding of what love truly is. Trey entered Charlotte's life after a failed setup with a friend of a friend. At the time, Charlotte had recently declared that she was going to get married at all costs, a mindset that in itself revealed a deeper issue. She was determined to fulfill a dream even if it meant forcing it into reality. Charlotte is romantic and hopeful at heart. She holds firm to her boundaries and expectations, refusing to settle for less than what she believes she deserves. This conviction is both a strength and a flaw. It drives her towards the life she envisions, but also blinds her to the things she doesn't yet realize she needs.
Maybe we should get married.
Alrighty.
Early in her relationship with Trey, she believed her romantic ideals and high expectations would be enough to sustain the marriage. But when she realized that physical intimacy was a vital part of love, even for someone as traditionally conservative as she considers herself, she could no longer ignore the gap between fantasy and reality. By marrying Trey, Charlotte appeared to have everything she ever wanted, a picture-perfect life that matched her dream of a fairy tale romance. But that was the problem. The life she built was based on a version of herself she believed she had to become in order to achieve that happy ending, someone she ultimately could not continue to be. The failure of her marriage had less to do with incompatibility and more to do with the misalignment between her authentic self and the role she was trying to play. As she grows more comfortable with her circumstances, Charlotte becomes increasingly adventurous and self-aware. She becomes more open, not only sexually but emotionally as well. Once she feels safe and in control, Charlotte surprises even herself with how willing she is to explore her desires.
No, I would never do it back to them.
Neither would I.
Me neither.
You wouldn't?
What distinguishes Charlotte from her friends is that she isn't afraid to embrace her traditionally feminine qualities. She is girly, dreamy, and hopeful, and unapologetically so. While she may conform to certain societal expectations, she never does so at the expense of her core values. Her dreams may align with societal ideals, but she draws a hard line when it comes to settling for something beneath her. This is why the breakdown of her marriage with Trey is especially heartbreaking. Charlotte fought so hard for that life, only to be left with the wreckage of a dream that couldn't withstand the weight of reality. Her grief is quiet and restrained, which makes it all the more powerful, especially for someone usually so cheerful and outspoken about love. If even Charlotte begins to lose faith in romance, it feels like a warning for anyone who dares to believe in it. The House and Garden photoshoot episode is one of the most poignant depictions of her disillusionment. Though she knows the marriage is over, she goes through with the shoot, clinging to the image of the life she worked so hard to build. Trey shows up, not to pretend, but because he wants to give her something beautiful amid the shared sadness. That small gesture reflects the complexity of their relationship, because Trey did love Charlotte. He simply couldn't be the partner she needed. Through the series, Charlotte ends up with some of the best serious partners. While she dated her share of questionable men, the ones she committed to treated her with respect, expressed their love clearly, and honored her boundaries. For the most part. Even Trey, despite his flaws, clearly loved her. As he said himself, if it didn't work with Charlotte, it wasn't going to work with anyone. She represented the closest he ever came to fulfilling the traditional life he thought he wanted, but couldn't fully embrace. Her relationship with Carrie, her second husband, stands as a powerful counterpoint to her marriage with Trey. Charlotte is initially set up with a handsome lawyer but quickly realizes she can be vulnerable with him during her divorce. Then she meets Harry, unconventional in appearance but deeply emotionally available. He sees not just her beauty and polish but also her anger, her flaws, and her quote-unquote ugly side, and loves her all the more for it. When Charlotte finally lets down her guard, she allows someone to love her for who she really is, not just for what she represents. And in doing so, she finally receives everything she had wanted all along.
On Easter morning, she would put chocolate eggs under his pillow! And he's 43!
That is really sick.
Can you use it?
No, but it is really, really sick.
Still, this relationship was quite a challenge for Charlotte, who, despite already having a failed marriage under her belt, refused to slow down and admit that maybe the partner giving her everything she ever wanted wasn't the one she expected. This led her to show an ambivalent behavior towards Harry, whose looks didn't resemble Prince Charming in any way and who wasn't as polished as she expected her partner to be. Because Harry is not only bald, short, and with a hairy back, he's also loud, direct, and crude. Now, the conflict she faced wasn't about finding her ideal partner, but about accepting the flaws of someone who met the most important requirements, even if he didn't look or act like she expected. And this led her down a path where she treated Harry like a sort of project, one she had a sense of superiority over. And this tracks with the patterns of unrealistic expectations that followed her through her dating life. Her first big blow up before he briefly broke up with her wasn't only about Charlotte doing everything to make Harry finally choose her and quote-unquote set the date. It was about how she viewed herself as better than him, and how dare he not appreciate someone way out of his league doing everything to become his wife. To be fair, while Charlotte was cruel towards Harry during this fight, he was also dismissive of the effort she was making to embrace his culture, making him feel at home and value his traditions. It's valid for her to call out his inconsistency when expressing his faith, because why could he eat pork but not marry someone outside of his religion? That does sound a bit arbitrary, especially when he doesn't even take his beliefs that seriously. My guy really went to the annual choral school of convenient beliefs.
I'm trying to pray to my God here, Cass.
Oh, wow. Is he listening?
I hope not. Otherwise he knows about all those pills I necked last night.
Something that I feel sold on was the need for Charlotte to become Jewish. She did so quite decisively and she was persistent about it, but this wasn't a conviction she had on her own. It was mostly because she wanted Harry to marry her. They eventually go back together and he in fact ends up proposing to her. But I would have loved to see Harry actually break the rules, even more, by marrying Charlotte as an Episcopalian. This could have emphasized the changes they would gladly make to belong into each other's lives, instead of being Charlotte the one who made most of the effort to fit into Harry's world. Charlotte and Harry getting back together felt like a real win, not because everything suddenly became perfect, but because they chose each other despite all the messy parts. Charlotte had to let go of the polished version of love she'd always clung to, and Harry had to see that love could mean making real changes and showing up fully. The reunion wasn't a fairy tale ending, but it was something better. Two people accepting each other completely and realizing that love often shows up in unexpected, imperfect, and meaningful ways.
Sir, you can't ride in the back. This is the love of my life! You'll be fine up front.
I love you so much, Harry!
I love you too, baby. Don't you leave me now!
In And Just Like That, we can see that Charlotte's character has been the most consistent of them all. And that's what I like about her. But still, the reason why she's been so consistent is because in a way the path she chose was well defined. Because a lot of women have gone through it. I'm glad she chose it, but it's easier to stay consistent when the path you chose is the one that was expected for you. But even if it's a common expectation for women, you can tell that Charlotte really put her heart on it. She became a great mother and wife and built a beautiful family in which she defied the expectations that she, I assume, was raised with. And this is shown not only in the way her marriage with Harry is still strong after 20 years, but also in the way she accepts and reaffirms Rock's gender identity and Lily's sexuality. Oh, Lily, you little shit. And still, she made the effort to choose differently. She accomplished her dreams of marrying a successful man that loves her and have a beautiful family, and now she wants to continue to another facet in her life. And which makes it more admirable is that she chooses to go back to work in her 50s after stopping altogether in her 30s. Something that is not only really difficult to do, but also is filed with stigma against older people. What I like the most about Charlotte is that in spite of how rigid her dreams and expectations can be at first, she does pivot to achieve a life she wants. And even when she has achieved everything she wanted, a life dedicated to the people she loves, she still chooses to pivot and create a new path for herself. And she doesn't do it out of forcefulness and a need to prove anything. She does it out of self-love and loyalty to who she really is. And this is quite evident when we compare the lives Charlotte and Miranda led. They both ended up married with kids, but only for one of them, this is the life they strive for and not the one they settled into. And in the end, it's quite evident when something is achieved out of loyalty to yourself and not something to appease societal expectations. In the case of Miranda, it's exactly that cynicism that made her an easy prey for underdevelopment like Steve. By not accepting what she truly wanted, she ended up settling for something she wasn't even sure of, and this is where Charlotte's naive openness about love plays in favor of her. By openly wanting a relationship, she spends less time hiding her apparent need and more time being open to experience love with different types of men without compromising her vision for one in particular. This sort of consistency made her someone who may be facing some of the setbacks that come with age, but someone that can look back in time and see how far she has gotten and how consistent she's been on her path because all these years she has been loyal to herself in a way that it's not imposing but still carries the strength necessary to demand the respect of others. Others except Lily, little shit. And this is precisely where Charlotte's strength lies. She's not forceful, overly sexual, nor detached. She's the opposite. She's hopeful, girly, and romantic, and to a lot of people this is seen as naive, when in reality she demonstrates a quiet resilience and strength of character that's not willing to settle down for anything less of what she wants, and the certainty that she deserves nothing but the best.
So I need your help and your support, not your words of help and support. And you can support me right now by going out there and telling Anthony that I am not available.
What makes Charlotte a modern version of the hopeless romantic is that despite her efforts to fit the classic mold of womanhood, she's not meek or overly agreeable. She consistently stands up for herself and for the people she loves, both in the show and in the films. She embodies many societal expectations for women, yet she's also aware of how these standards can confine her, creating a cycle she eventually has to break on her own. Her hope and idealism often serve as a quiet inspiration to her more jaded friends, offering them a glimpse of what it means to still believe in love. Charlotte's dating life is filled with missteps and unconventional efforts to reach her so-called happy ending. Her plans don't always work out, but she never loses faith. She believes that feelings are meant to be felt, and within her carefully constructed rules, she often shares a bit of classic wisdom that help ground her friends in their own emotional lives. When she feels safe, Charlotte can be surprisingly open, revealing a woman who, while trying to live up to traditional standards, desires and embraces sexual freedom just as much as her more outwardly liberated friends. Kristen Davis not only did a great job portraying Charlotte's sweetness and naivety, but she also brought out her fiery, quirky determination and humor, enhanced beautifully by her facial expressions. Charlotte is a character who can make you laugh out loud and cry in the same episode, and I love her for that. I would have loved to see more moments between Charlotte and Samantha because their scenes together were genuinely sweet, and they could have helped each other grow so much more, instead of being portrayed as opposites or occasional antagonists. Sure, Charlotte could have learned a lot from Samantha about embracing her sexuality, but honestly, Samantha could have learned just as much from Charlotte about self-love and healthy relationships. Let's not forget the pep talk Charlotte gave Samantha after she caught Richard cheating.
Yes, it's tragic that you were in love and it didn't work out, but you have got to emotionally cut him out of your life and move on, and the sooner the better.
Charlotte would always give solid advice about staying strong, just in her own way. In fact, what a lot of people write off as naivete is actually her greatest strength. Charlotte isn't blindly optimistic. She believes she deserves the best and is confident she'll get it no matter what. That kind of quiet conviction makes her braver and stronger than she often gets credit for, even compared to the other girls. For example, as I mentioned in my Carrie video, there is a common belief that if Big hadn't been with Carrie, he would have ended up with Charlotte. But honestly, I don't think that's true. Sure, Charlotte fits Big's type. She's elegant, beautiful, and from a similar world. But Big was never Charlotte's type. He may have been rich, handsome, and successful, but he was too flaky and emotionally inconsistent to ever be a good partner for her. And he treated Charlotte better not just because she was his type, but because she was firm and clearly not someone to play games with. Once you lose Charlotte's respect, you're done. Charlotte York is often underestimated because she fits a certain image, traditional, romantic, and picture perfect. But underneath the surface, she's a woman who is strong, principled, quietly rebellious, and emotionally courageous. She's not naive because she believes in love. She's brave because she holds on to that belief even when the world gives her every reason not to. Her journey through heartbreak, self-discovery, and personal growth shows that being soft doesn't mean being weak. And that hope when grounded in self-respect is one of the most powerful things a person can have. Charlotte may love fairy tales, but she lives in the real world, and she proves that you can believe in both and still come out stronger in the end.
I dedicated my baby, my book, to hopeful single women everywhere, and one in particular, my good friend Charlotte, the eternal optimist, who always believes in love.
And that's it. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share. Bye-bye.